Rams fans, it is game day. The Los Angeles Rams play today, the day we have been waiting months for at this point. It has been long enough, but we have finally made it. It's at least the preseason. It's at least something. We're going to get to watch the Los Angeles Rams play football today. Guys, welcome into a brand new episode of the Rams Report presented by Prize Picks. As always, guys, sign up for Prize Picks. And when you use code HMA and play your first $5 lineup, if you win that first $5 lineup, you'll get $150 in bonus lineups. But guys, on today's show, we're going to be talking about 5 things to be watching for during today's preseason game against the Kansas City Chiefs. But we will be live for every single snap of this game right here on the Rams Report. So subscribe, turn on your notifications, and don't miss our live stream. I want you there partying with us and watching the first Rams game of the year. And the number one thing I think everyone's going to be watching for, how could you not, is the QB back and forth. The QB battle for that second spot behind Matthew Stafford, Stetson Bennett versus Ty Simpson. Now, initially, I did not expect that we would see Stetson Bennett in this game. That was kind of my thought process going into this was, okay, this is going to be the Ty Simpson show. We're going to see all Ty Simpson. Sean McVay said he was unsure whether or not Stetson was going to play, but he knew that Ty definitely would. He told us that last week. But then this week, on August 13th, he told the media pool, actually, Stetson's going to start this one. And then when you hear that, you kind of go, oh, hang on, wait just a minute. What does that mean? And it can mean a lot of different things, right? We've talked about this before on the channel, but there's a couple different roads you could go down with this information. Road number 1 is Ty Simpson's back in this QB battle. That's exactly where you can go. You could jump right to that, 100%. You can also go, okay, the Kansas City Chiefs are a team that usually play their starters in the preseason for at least a couple of drives. Is this Sean McVay identifying that tendency from Andy Reid and his squad and going, you know what? We've got a chance here to see what Stetson Bennett looks like against another team's once. He had some struggles again in the joint practice against the Dallas Cowboys. Those are well documented. Multiple interceptions by Justin Barron. Maybe we get to see what he looks like on 2 drives against the Kansas City Chiefs starters, and then he's pulled out real quick once the Chiefs pull their starters, and it's all Ty Simpson. That would tell me, okay, Stetson's the backup quarterback. They just wanted to see what he looked like against another team's starters. But no matter what happens, we're going to find out where this QB battle is. Because I'm telling you guys, if it's the alternative, if it's Stetson for a half and Ty Simpson for a half, then that tells me this is an ongoing evaluation process of both of these guys right here and right now, trying to figure out which of them is a better option to back up Matthew Stafford going into this season, and maybe trying to figure out, are either of them an adequate option to back up Matthew Stafford this season? And that's not the end of the world. If they decide Ty Simpson's not ready to back up Matthew Stafford this season and that Ty Simpson playing would jeopardize the goal and the expectation of winning a Super Bowl, that's okay. He's a rookie. Expecting him to be able to lead a team to a Super Bowl if thrust into that position would kind of be a ridiculous expectation, just to be completely honest with you guys. Kind of a ridiculous thing to expect. So if they do go out and do that, it's not the end of the world. But we're going to find out today, 100%. That's what's for sure where this QB competition really is. Is it still open, or is Stetson shut the door in Ty Simpson's face? Is Ty locked in as QB3? We will find out by the end of today's game. And we're going to find out some other things as well, and we'll dive deep into them in just 1 second, guys. But before we do that, I've got to give a shout-out to the sponsor of today's video, and that's our friends over at Prize Picks, guys, America's #1 sports picks app, and the easiest way to play daily fantasy sports. Guys, the football season is back, guys. It is right here, and that means it's time to get going with our daily fantasy action. Again, get back on the Prize Picks app, and if you've never played with Prize Picks before, it is super easy, to play daily fantasy. All you have to do is pick more or less on a few player stats, and you're locking in your lineup. And with the social feeds feature, you can share prize picks with your friends and copy lineups with a single click. That includes me, guys. You can drop a follow on my prize picks account. Just Jackson Durham is my username. You can tail my picks. You can fade my picks, and you can see them before they're even posted on the show. Here's a little season-long projection lineup I've got going, and you guys can tail that one or fade that one in my social feeds feature. And if you're a brand new prize picks user, make sure you take advantage of their new user offer. Play your first $5 and get $150 in lineups if you win. Just use code HMA when you sign up. That's right, Prize Picks just switched up their offer, so there's no better time to join, lock in, and win that first lineup. That's code HMA at sign up to get $150 in bonus lineups if you win your first $5 lineup. Okay, let's talk about another topic here. The depth along the offensive line, I think, is going to come into focus in this game as well pretty quickly. And I will say, I hear you guys. I see the comments. It is one of the most common comments I get is, are we concerned about the depth along the offensive line? I wish you would talk more about the depth along the offensive line. And I do feel like we've talked about it a good deal, but I am not running from this. It is something that worries me a little bit. Absolutely it is. I think we have protection questions, to sum it up in a little bit of a rhyme there. I would love to see how this depth group holds up against Kansas City's ones, especially if they play all of them early. Because we know they're going to play a few of them. We don't know exactly what the split's going to look like from Kansas City. Andy Reid not really going to show his hand. But typically, he plays his starters in the preseason on both sides of the ball for at least a couple drives. And we know Sean McVay doesn't play any starters in the preseason for any drives. So this is probably what your offensive line is going to look like today. We know Justin Dedich is not playing, so he would fill in that left guard spot if he was healthy, but he is still working his way back from that freak accident that occurred around the 4th of July. So it will be Bill Murray, who was signed recently, who the depth chart tells you is backing himself up. That is actually my bad there, guys. He should not be backing himself up. There is technically no backup left guard on the roster. Dylan McMahon, we do not have a backup center behind him either, so he will likely be the starter. Maybe we see a little bit of Coleman Shelton. I don't think we're going to see any of Steve Avila in this game, but likely Dylan McMahon and Bill Murray as your starters at left guard and center. David Quessenberry will fill in at left tackle. He's been the swing tackle in practice with the first team. Bo Limmer will play right guard, and Keegan Trost will play right tackle. And there will probably be a little bit of tackle rotation. I expect Trost to play the early downs as right tackle, maybe rotate into right guard. Bryce Henderson probably comes on the field. Blake Hance will probably see some action as well. Austin Blasky may play at center as the backup at that spot. He's flexible to basically every spot along the interior of the offensive line. So a lot of questions to get answered with this group of guys who could potentially see action this season, especially Quessenberry and Trost. I really want to see how they hold up against other teams' ones, because we talked about this last season. 13 games of the 17 games that you played, you were missing at least one starting offensive lineman. 13 out of 18 weeks, one starter gone. That's all. I mean, it just tells you you're going to need these guys at some point this season. One of these guys is going to play an important role. We've got to see what they look like in their first chance, kind of as a unit together, to really get it done, especially Trost, who's never played in the NFL. Next up, who's involved from a receiving perspective? I know this is what a lot of you are currently thinking about right now. Who's filling roles here as a receiver? Who is playing for us at the receiver spot, guys? Sorry, someone just came up and showed me. I love the Ramilly, so that's why I turned my head to the right there. Someone having fun with us here at the Chat Sports offices. They're excited for game day. We're excited for game day. We love the Ramilly, and if you love the Ramilly just as much as they do, drop a like on today's video. But let's keep rolling. Let's talk about the preseason depth chart at receiver. Jordan Whittington is our number one receiver, almost certainly, for the preseason. We haven't heard exactly who's in, who's out for this group. So if Jay Wade doesn't end up playing, then it just tells you he's been balling in camp and they don't feel any concerns about him. Mupfield, I do expect to see some run as well. But the guys who will play the majority of this game, Xavier Smith, Tyler Scott, CJ Daniels, True Edwards, Brennan Presley, Mario Williams. Can any of those guys flash a little bit here? Especially CJ and Xavier. I'm looking at those two guys. What do they show in this game? Because Jay Witt and Kanate, I feel pretty good about. We've heard really good things out of them at training camp. I'd like to see them kind of verify that on the first couple drives, show some flashes, make some plays, and then kind of get out of this game. They're going to be really important this season. We know that. But CJ and Xavier, I'd love to see them ball out in this game. I'd love to see them go make plays. And then you go to the tight end depth chart, which I've got now listed as 4 tight ends across here because that is how the Rams are listing it on their depth chart. It's 4 tight ends or starting tight ends for them. So I have our tight end ones for this one, Terrence Ferguson and Davis Allen. I don't expect we'll see any of Colby Parkinson or Tyler Higbee, although it is possible. Just don't expect it. I do think we're going to see heavy. You know what? Now that I'm looking at Davis Allen, I totally forgot he is on the NFI. So do not expect to see Davis Allen. It'll be Terrence Ferguson, Max Clare, Mark Redmond, and probably Dan Valeri as well out there. Probably Rohan Jones rotating in a little bit as well. The undrafted free agent out of Arkansas should see some action. Sorry, guys, on my bad there. Totally blanked on Davis Allen being out for this game. So he will not play, but is Terrence Ferguson going to play? That's another question here, because if Terrence Ferguson's entirely inactive for this game, then it tells you exactly what the Rams have planned for him and that he's already verified his ability to do it this offseason. We know he balled out in joint practice against the Dallas Cowboys, 7 receptions on 8 targets. He was almost unstoppable for that Cowboys defense, which we know played better this season and we know is going to be a better unit. So that is a really good unit to go out there and ball out against. Maybe we see him a little bit today. If he is out there, I want to see him making plays. But my focus is primarily going to be on Max Clare, Dan Valeri, Mark Redmond, and Rohan Jones. Can the young guys flash, especially Clare, that second-round pick? He's fighting an uphill battle to get involved in this room. A lot of vets in front of him. But if he can show a lot in the preseason, then there's absolutely a chance. Lastly, the running back depth chart. I expect Ronnie Rivers to be the lead guy out there alongside Jarquez Hunter. But how does that rotation look? Is Jordan Waters heavily involved? Are we seeing any of Dean Connors, the undrafted free agent out of Houston, who has, according to some reports, shown some special teams value? He did that at college. Is he going to take any of these special team rotations as well? A number of questions for this running back depth chart. I would love to see Jarquez Hunter go out there and look really good, see if he can earn some run in this rotation in the regular season as well, which he was unable to do last year. Next, similar question, but flip the side here. I want to talk about this defensive line because we know we're not going to see Myles Garrett. We know we're not going to see Byron Young. We know we're not going to see some of the superstars out there. No Kobe Turner, no Poona Ford. But this is a big opportunity for DeJuan Johnson, who we've heard really good things about. For Josiah Stewart, who we've heard really good things about throughout camp. To go out there and ball out. To do exactly what he did against the Cowboys when he was pressed into that starting role because Myles Garrett didn't play. So it was him and Byron Young rushing against Cowboys number ones. It's going to be a lot easier than facing the Cowboys number 1 offensive line for the vast majority of today. He'll see some starters early on. That'll be a great test for Josiah Stewart, but I want to see him dominate. If he's playing the majority of the action today, then I want to see him dominating. And Wesley Bailey, you go down that depth chart, Kiara Thomas and Wesley Bailey. Wesley Bailey's looked great in training camp. He's been owning the backup offensive tackles. I want to find out today if that's because we've got depth concerns along the offensive line or if because we've got some dogs in this rush rotation and our depth is great along the defensive line. I would feel really, really good about seeing Wesley Bailey and Josiah Stewart, DeJuan Johnson, Tom and Fox, Daryl Peterson, Peyton Zadroy. All these guys go out there and make some fucking plays. That's what I want to see today from this defensive line and the depth of it, because just like with the offensive line, you know injuries are going to come up in the trenches this season. You know some of these guys are going to play hugely important roles beyond just their rotational asks, and I need to see them look good here. I really want to see that click for this team. And then we should have the preseason DB depth chart with, oh, you know what? Guys, I totally forgot to flip the pictures. So you're going to see the pictures of our starters here, but the names are correct here. All right, so here we go. Emmanuel Forbes, who looks like Trent McDuffie for some reason. Some crazy surgeries that these guys all did to look like each other today. Emmanuel Forbes is going to probably be your number 1 corner. Josh Wallace, I believe, will start in the nickel. Jalen McCullough, I expect to be your starting free safety with Tanner Ingle. Potentially, maybe some Cam Kinchins at strong safety. I don't think we'll see any of Cam Curl We'll see exactly how that rotation goes. And then Cam Lampkin on the other side. Guys, that is what I expect our secondary to look like. Before we get out of here on today's show, guys, I've got to tell you about the other sponsor of today's video. I want to talk a little bit more about the secondary, but before we do that, guys, we've got to talk about our sponsor on today's video. Let's round out today. I think the depth of this secondary could be a sneaky concern for the Rams. I'm not going to lie, guys. It's just like we talked about with the offensive line. Obviously, you made massive upgrades to the starters. I feel way better about where we're at versus last season, which is it's kind of tough, right? Because you go out and do all this improvement to the secondary just for me to come back here and say it's still an issue. And you're probably like, Jackson, what's ever going to be good enough for this secondary? Well, at the end of the day, injuries are, you're one or two injuries away from this secondary being in a drastically different position. Cam Lampkin thrust into a starting role, someone we really haven't seen at the NFL level. Emmanuel Forbes asked to come back and play that starting role, something that was a mixed bag at times last season, to say the absolute least. This game is an interesting test for these guys because they're not facing the best receiver core in the league in Kansas City. You got Rashee Rice probably going to be out there a little bit early. Xavier Worthy may play. He's been dealing with some injury situations throughout training camp. We'll see what that looks like. They've got a young guy in Cyrus Allen who's been turning some heads. I expect we'll see a lot of him. But it's not a stacked out receiver core that you're going to play, even when the starters are there. But it's still an opportunity to get a little bit of run against a team that's going to play their starters, very likely when we're not. So it's R2s against starters early. So take that with a grain of salt. If early on the Kansas City Chiefs are running all over this defense, okay, that's okay. At the end of the day, this is our backup defense. We've got to understand that going up against a starting NFL offense. So it's not the end of the world if they storm down the field and score a touchdown on the first two drives. But if we can get some stops, if we can get Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs, or Patrick Mahomes won't be playing, Justin Fields and the Kansas City Chiefs off the field on these first two drives, I would be very happy with the way this defense looks. All right, that's going to round it out for today's episode of the Rams Report. Guys, like I said off the top, we will be live probably around the time you're watching this. We're getting ready to go live. We'll be live at noon Pacific time, 2 p.m. Central time. Gosh, time's killing me right now. Noon Pacific time, 2 p.m. Central time. We will be live, so don't miss it. I will see you there. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, and let's go Rams, baby.